Welcome everybody to the latest episode of Into the Storm with Ryan Madrid. It used to be Real Talk with Ryan Madrid. We've only done one episode under the new name, so I'm going to keep telling everybody the new name. It goes along with our new company, Bison Ventures, running into the storm. So thank you to Trey over here. He's my nephew, and he does the podcast production. Podcast engineering, and then my sister. It's a family affair over there doing the podcast production. We also have Rachel Drummond in the house. That's a clap. She is, there we go. Nice. Trey. Thanks, buddy. So Rachel had brought our guest to us today, even though him and I have been friends for a long time as well. But they are homies from down here, but also they hang out in Munds Park a lot, which if you know Steve, he is the not the real mayor of Munds Park, but he might be one day. But he definitely owns the real estate market up there as far as getting people up there and giving them creative ideas for creative financing. Yep. So Steve Valentine of the Valentine Group is here with us today. So good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you.
It's been a little bit.
It's been a while.
We just got done talking about cars and trucks and stuff like that because that is one of his passions, because he has the opportunity to stumble into some of those things sometimes when he's doing some of his incredible deals. So Steve not only does the retail or the basic real estate business, traditional, but he's also really, really good at finding solutions for clients. And I think that is one thing that I've seen him grow through over the last like 8 or 9 years, just kind of like take over that business. And I'm jealous from afar, even though him and I have talked numerous times, and I feel just like I should have done this, I should have done that when he told me to, like every time. It's always would have worked. And he knows that. But I think that today we've all heard your story. I think at this point we all know your background. So I want to talk a little bit more about what you're doing now, what your mindset is now, what you're doing for your clients and partners, and even though your other realtors are coming to you for advice during a market that's changed, right? We're shifting for sure. So what's your mindset right now?
The mindset is really just getting outside the box and showing what is possible in the real estate world. You know, it's we're trained when we get in, there's only one way to do things. And a lot of that has to do with shift in mindset from agent to the investor mindset. Now, you know, I pause on that because most people are like, oh, investors, you know, they're lowballing people and those types of things. But you forget that, like, if you have an investor mindset, you actually are looking to invest in people. You're looking to invest in different strategies and creativity. So it's actually a helpful mindset, because once you get into that mindset, you can help people solve things creatively from the investor perspective, because you're also teaching people how to invest. Right.
And like you said earlier, there's a lot of times where you actually talk people out of selling their house, right? Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about why you would do that.
Okay, so let's just talk about the market we're in right now. And I just went through the strategy with my team this morning. Is think about a buyer over the last couple of years that owned a house. They knew they could sell their house for a really good price, but didn't know where they were going to go because the market was crazy. You know, the sellers had a gun to the buyer's head and they just didn't want to play in that market. Yep. Well, now all of a sudden it's shifted where if somebody did want to, there's a couple of different options. One, if you own your house and you can go get a HELOC on it. If you have a 2 or 3% mortgage, do not touch that mortgage. It's good as gold, right? But you can go get a HELOC on it, you know, while it's owner occupied. And then you could have the equity to go put down on another house. Now, here's where the fear is. Oh, but the interest rates. Okay. So, you know, if the interest rates are 5.5%, right, they're 2 points over where they were 90 days ago. But people forget that there's ways that you can buy points down. You can do different things, but you also have the ability to pick and choose a house now because there's more inventory to pick from. But also keeping in mind that it's cheaper to rent than it is to buy. So we're watching the rental market start to pick back up right now. So if you have one of those houses that has a $200,000 or $300,000 mortgage on it, you're probably going to cash flow somewhere in the $500 to $700 a month range, which technically would cover the difference, you know, if you're moving in that direction. So it's understanding that mindset that you're creating what you want to now, but you got to know how to strategize to get there. And so, you know, I think that if you look at the housing market right now, all of these REITs and hedge funds that have bought all these homes over the last 10 years, those houses will never return to market. They will always move from one REIT to the next.
Right.
They'll never be put like on a traditional agent on the market. They will move it in packages, and nobody will ever see them again.
They'll always be rentals?
There'll always be rentals.
Yeah. Let me ask you a scenario here. So if you bought a house this is a hypothetical scenario. If you bought a house for $350, okay, you say you owe $310.
Okay.
House is worth $650. You want to keep the house, but you're at, say, 3%. You're going to take a HELOC out, right? Take the equity in the home, say $250,000. Well, now you've got the HELOC and the mortgage payment. So say you're up to maybe like $2,800.
Okay.
You might be able to rent that for $2,800.
Okay.
Okay. So right around
break
there.
Even.
It's a break even. Do you think that is, as long as you can take the money out and you can come close to breaking even, even if you have to come out a little bit every year, is that the right thing to do, you think? If you can take that money, you can put it into another house?
If you can go put it in another house, now if you're pulling it out to go pay debt off, some people, they do that, or they're buying things. The goal is, or the question is, if my HELOC is at 2 or 3%, can I double my rate of return on that money? So if it's just sitting there, it's great that you have equity in your house, but it's actually depleting every year, right? Because as things are rising, but if you can make that money work, right, in another house, putting it down, which would save you mortgage insurance or some of those things, you might get a better rate, but it's making it work. And in the meantime, in that same scenario that you had and it's break even, you probably have some reserves in that, right? And you don't have to spend the whole HELOC. You only pull out what you need,
right?
But you still have that as access. But if you're moving it, so if I had $250,000, I'd be looking at, hey, can I go buy a primary house and can I buy one more rental property? Because here's the difference in that. If you strategize to leverage smart, right, and you have liquidity or you have reserves, somebody, I had the same scenario, $500,000 cash buyer in 2018. I told him, take that $500,000 and let's buy 5 homes and leverage. They'll still break even. They'll cash flow a little bit. He's like, no, I just don't feel comfortable with that. Do you know what those 5 $250,000 homes would be worth today?
Yeah, millions.
Yeah. Yeah. But instead he had one $500,000 house. Now, some people would argue and go, yeah, well, they can always go down. They only go down when you sell them, right? Yeah. So you can also refinance and leverage those things. I mean, that's what we did. We just leveraged our portfolio and pulled cash out. Yeah, it stops the monthly cash flow, but now I have liquidity for whatever's next.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough nowadays, though, too, where it's... You all right? Okay. It's tough nowadays, too, where you have to put 20% down, right, if you're going to if it's going to be an investment property.
Yeah.
It's not... You can't really find a house for $200,000 nowadays.
Nope.
Right. So you pull $500,000 out, that might get you 2 houses.
2 or 3.
2 or 3 houses. Yep. But your model has always been kind of, you turn your one house into a rental, your primary, and then you buy another primary. Yep. And then you turn that into rental, and then you buy another primary.
Right.
And that's allowed you to accumulate upwards of 70 some homes, right? And on those homes, do you have partners in those homes, or those are just you and Wendy's?
Just Wendy and I's personal assets.
Wow. I remember when you didn't have that many. Like literally the teens probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just insane. So all those homes, so do you dip into those homes as you continually grow, or there's a certain ones that just stay and they're just always a rental, or does every single one of them have equity? And are there times where you're just like, I'm gonna do a HELOC on all these right now?
So we don't do HELOCs on the investments because typically the lenders won't do them on investment properties.
Right.
But here's the thing. If an agent in the life of their business, let's say the average agent has a 30-year career, if they would buy one house every 2 years and stay on that path, they would have a decent retirement and decent liquidity, right? And some people will get off course, like right now, they'll be like, oh, the prices are too high, I'm not buying one. And they'll try to time the market exactly, rather than understanding is that there's a law of average. Okay, if you go back to, our career, you bought something in 2000, you bought something in 2002, 2004, 2006 was right at the height. But then if you had kept buying in the downtime, you would have a law of average where that portfolio lays out. But, this was the thing that killed me when I watched my dad when he passed away was that 40 years in the business and you didn't own any real estate, but you sold a bunch of real estate to people. So now, my life goal right now is to make sure that agents at least have the knowledge to do this. And it's up to them if they're going to apply it and get creative, right? But the number one regret, Kevin Kaufman was on my podcast last week, and I sat at so many lunches that I'm like, dude, look what we did with this. Look what we did this. And he's like, no, we're doing these things. And he says, the number one regret is that I didn't listen to you earlier on in my career. Yeah. Right. That I would have bought more real estate because they had the ability to do it. Yeah. They just weren't doing it.
Yeah. I have that regret as well. But you know what? You also went through the tough times of, the early 2000s and all that stuff too. And I've seen, I had a house in West Wing Mountain that was worth $875 at one point that I ended up short selling for $290. That house right now is worth $875.
Yep.
A decade later.
But the only difference is back then is that we were doing stupid loans.
Yeah.
And people were buying houses they shouldn't be. And, anybody that had a 30-year mortgage, if they would have rode the wave, it's probably worth, look at my first house that I sold for $204, went down to like $140 in the downturn. It's worth $400 all day long right now. Yeah. And it would have been paid off had I just let it ride.
Right. So we talked a little bit about a house you bought on Thunderbird, and how did you find that house? Because you got a great deal on that house.
Yeah, I did. So, a lot of my business, the question always is like, where do you get your deals? Where's your business coming from? It's from reputation of knowing that I can solve the problem and I can be creative. So a lot of the houses like that one at 75th and Thunderbird came from another agent that has brought me a couple of deals. She actually does luxury spec homes, and she doesn't mess with the small stuff. And she's like, she stays in her lane.
Yeah.
She's like, we're not going to mess with this. I'm like, okay. So we will buy that. We paid $140 for a 2,200 square foot house. Now, keep in mind, the house is 10 years of hoarding. It looks like it's had 10 cats living in it for 10 years. Yeah. And it's bad. Like the subfloor's rotten. Like we're going to have to take it down to the studs. So while it's 35 cents on the dollar, I'm going to have to put 60 cents on the dollar into it to get it back to shape. But here's the trick. So many people want to get enthralled with flipping houses and doing all this, and like there's big money into it. There's also big losses, right? If you haven't experienced enough of it, some people do one flip, like, oh yeah, this is easy, right? No big deal, we're making money. But until they experience a loss, right? And I think our highest loss was $125,000 on one flip that we lost. So, but here's the kicker. You buy something for that price, we put $200,000 into it, it's worth $450,000. Now, if you work the numbers backwards, I'm going to have a 10% cost of sale because I still pay my brokerage and my agents and all that other stuff, all those things. Take 40 grand off, there's about $110,000 potential profit. Uncle Sam takes another 35 grand of that. So at the end of the day, I might keep 70. So here's the crazy thing. If I don't sell it and I put a tenant in it and I wait 90 days, I now have 25% equity that was bought basically in that deal that I now use to refinance it, and I have no money into the deal. So I have an asset with $150,000 worth of equity. I have none of my own money into it except for when we did the renovation. So we got all that money back in the refinance. And now we have a 6% interest rate on it because we're doing the DSCR loans because they're simple. And now that house is probably break even. It might be negative a little bit, but I bought $150,000 in equity.
Right.
And what most agents don't understand, or anybody that's in the real estate profession, is that because we're real estate professionals, we get a higher tax write-off on our depreciation. So that house, each house I own probably saves me about $2,000 a year in taxes. So last year, 78 homes, it was about $150,000 difference in my tax bill had I not owned those 78 homes.
So explain to everybody how you purchased the home, with what money.
So, whatever direction you want to do. And again, this is where it gets into creative stuff. So, on these houses, what we do is so that we can refinance it and get our money back is we usually borrow money from private lenders, right? So I have a group of investors that have all been past clients or friends or mentors that have liquidity. They don't want it in the stock market. I give a guaranteed rate of return to them. It's secured by real estate in first position. And then I have a line of credit with them. So I send them a text. Here's what I need. They wire the money to title, we refinance, they get their money back, and then we put it back to work. Yep. So over the years, we've just learned how to raise capital and show people how it works, because investors are looking for safe place, especially right now.
Yeah.
You don't think people are looking for safe, guaranteed rate of return?
Oh yeah.
Right? So that's where we get it. We do have to dip into some of the traditional hard money lenders here and there when we run out of money, depending on the deals and things like that.
Those people are technically hard money people, but they're just
I call
like
it relationship capital.
Right, there you go. So is that called the Burr method? Is that what that is?
The Burr method is a little bit different because they do the buy, renovate, refinance, repeat, but most people are trying to pull cash out of it.
Okay.
Right. So they're trying to get their cash back. We structured it a little differently because we found a way to do the first loan and second loan as purchase money. Right. So you know the rules on that, right? If I lien a property afterwards, it creates that it's technically a cash out. So it changes my LTV. So what we do is we've gone through and when a private money. So let's say I borrow $140,000 for that house from the private lender, and I've got to put $200,000 into it in my own cash for that 90 days. We record a second lien at time of closing for that $187,000 because now it makes it all purchase money. So when the lender goes back to refinance it, they see the first mortgages, the first and second, they were both recorded at the same time. It's not considered cash out, so I can take my LTV to 75% and get a better rate because it's not cash out.
You listening over here, everybody? This is where this sort of stuff right here is like great for somebody like Trey, right? Young. He's going to buy his first house that's going to become a rental. Yeah. And then he's going to buy another one.
Never sell anything.
And I'm going to partner with him on this. I'm going to give him the funds for the first home. So your business is, so you have a property management company, technically, right, in the family.
Yep.
Traditional real estate, and then you have the
acquisition, investor business, and then the renovation business.
Yeah.
Right.
So it all falls on the same umbrella, and Wendy is the contractor.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
On your deals. And you guys are doing a deal, this is really cool. They're doing a deal up in Munds Park. It's like the retirement home, but it's going to be a cash cow basically until you guys, it can be.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that though, if you want to.
Yeah. So, before I get into that, one of the things that is really important to understand is that over the years, having a really smart CPA that manages our businesses has helped me understand how to structure certain things to benefit the taxes and those types of things.
Yeah.
For anybody out there that's like, oh, this person charged me X amount to do my taxes. I'm like, then you didn't pay enough.
Right.
Because that person will save you a ton of money in the long run, and they will make sure you don't get in trouble with doing stupid things. A lot of people just do it without what are the rules behind this or what are the benefits behind doing it. So when we build this house, it will be a spec and it will be rented by one of our companies, which will pay for it. And then it will also be rented 1 week a month for about $20,000 a month for retreat. So influencers are doing retreats, masterminds, those types of things. So we started to build something smaller that we could use, and then we decided to go, stupid big and build 7,000 square feet.
Right.
And it's the Taj Mahal of Munds Park, and it's going to be really awesome. But we did that from a business strategy. Even though I kind of as building materials started going up, I'm getting sick to my stomach. I'm like, well, it's going to cost me $500,000 more than I expected.
Right.
But the crazy thing is staying on that is that 1 week a month will cover the mortgage and then some. And so when we do it as a second home, we do it as an investment, because if we ever want to sell that, a second home doesn't qualify for a 1031 exchange, and you just get hammered with long-term cap gains.
Yeah.
Right? Most people don't realize that. So we've always structured them as investment properties so that if I ever want to sell it, I can 1031 exchange into something else and not have the taxes. But there's always ways around that. If you own a second home, if you just convert it for a year into a rental and show rental income, you now went from second home to investment on your taxes, which now qualifies it for a 1031 exchange.
Right. So you'll never have to, even if you don't move into it, it's never going to be a primary residence for you.
No.
It never will be.
No.
Damn. So when you're, I wouldn't say, you earlier said you have classes, you have your students, or so you teach other agents who not only within your own brokerage, but Just
no,
people
so
just
I've got,
come to you, or how's it work?
Yeah, so I've got a mentorship program that's a group mentorship. It's $999 a month. And what I wanted to do is I wanted a place where agents could come every week, and if they had, I went on this listing appointment, I talked to this buyer, how do I do this? What are the numbers on this? How should I paperwork this? So it's really a strategy session that's kind of live, that the agents bring the content and then we break it down, right? So I break it down, I show them how to do it, what to do with it. And so we've got about 20 agents, in there now, goals to get to 50 by the end of the year. And then some of those agents move from the group coaching and want to do private coaching. So, I have spaces for a couple of private people a week. But the thing about it is that it's not like your typical real estate coaches, all the things that people are telling. Most of you guys know the things to do, and you've been coached by Tom Ferry, right? Make your phone calls, do your things. I'm trying to coach is that once you understand how to do those things, your real estate license is your biggest opportunity to create wealth and change the future. So before COVID, and even last night, I spoke to 150 agents last night. Do you know what the percentage of real estate agents that own real estate as investment properties?
It's 10.
5 to 10%.
Wow.
Every place I speak. Do you know the average time the agents have been in the business? 10 to 20 years. And nobody owns any real estate because nobody's teaching them what they should do. So you look at all the big teams, all the things, there's very few people that are going through the education on like, I'm glad you're here, but you also need to be doing this. And you're going to run into an opportunity where a seller, like that house that I bought at 75th and Thunderbird, that seller doesn't want to be on the market. She was embarrassed, crying. You know what she wanted? She wanted enough money to clear her debt and go move with her daughter in California. She wasn't worried about the highest price. And see, as agents, what happens is we go into these appointments and we automatically think that this person wants whatever market value is. And so in order to change that, this was my challenge last night, we have to ask better questions when we're with people to find out what their goals are, where they want to be now and where they want to be in the future. Because those things make a difference, right? Is it about paying off debt? Is it about getting the highest price? Because what happens is we go into these appointments with our comps. We don't know what the house looks like. We don't know what the situation is. And we tend to sit there and go, well, I'm the best person for the job. And it becomes about a me contest. Here's my presentation, here's my stuff, here's my numbers. That's why we're the best. Rather than a conversation about you. How many conversations, have we had? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? This is what I think you should do. And this is how we're going to get there. But here are your options, right? So which one would you like to choose? It's like a choose your own adventure.
Right.
And that's just kind of the way I leave it. If they want to go hire somebody else that thinks better, that's okay.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to make sure that people know all of their options. How many people sold their houses to Open Door and OfferPad that nobody ever told them like, hey, did you know how much this would rent for? Did you know you could do these things? But they thought it was so easy and certain that that's what they did. But how much wealth did they leave on the line because they thought this was the right thing to do because it was easy, but nobody guided them to it.
Yeah. Damn, dude. What, so who'd you speak to last night?
Justin Mercer, the tattoo realtor.
Yeah.
He did a big event out at Sandbar in Gilbert.
Okay.
About 150 agents there.
Damn.
Templeton Walker and I rapped back and forth, did a little talk out there.
Another great guy. Made some really good decisions.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. This is harkening back to Temple's episode many years back.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're both. Yeah.
Temp's good dude.
Both. Yeah. So he had 150 people come out there. Is he an investor too? This is not about him, but the tattooed realtor. What's his name?
Yeah, Justin Mercer.
Okay. Yeah, man. That's a good number amount of people to show up to an event.
Yeah. He's a genius in his branding, right? He just came out of the gate and was super different. He's pissed some people off, but he's created a reputation.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny about it? We were talking last night, and he's got like a complaint about something. And I'm like, look, dude, there's gonna be older people in this industry, and you are a target.
Yeah.
And you just have to know that, right? But the only thing you can do is shine brighter than what they are and prove them wrong. That's it.
Absolutely. And it seems to be doing. He seems to be doing well.
But what I love about Justin and I love about Temp and you know me, right, is just being super authentic.
Yeah.
To who you are and knowing what you want in your audience, right? If somebody doesn't like my jeans, my chucks, my cowboy boots, my t-shirts, that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? That I'm not for them, right? But I can tell you right now, like in the luxury side of the business, I'm probably not your person, but if somebody owns a luxury house and wants to know how to invest,
Right.
there's a lot of money there that people are not
Yeah.
taking advantage of as far as the business goes.
Absolutely. And I think it does come to a situation where you have to earn the right, though, too, right? I mean, at one point you weren't wearing jeans and chucks and chuck or holes in your jeans.
Yeah, but that was kind of a forced thing from my dad, because that's the way my dad dressed, and he says, this is how the business is done.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, but I want to be comfortable, right? So I just, chose to be the authentic me, and this is who I am and how I show up, and I show up this way on Instagram, and I show up in real life that way.
You know what? I mean, Temp's the same way, right?
Yep.
Shorts, t-shirt, and hats, and but he's earned it as well, right?
Right.
So, do you have like a favorite story about a situation, kind of like the situation you were talking about on Thunderbird, like where you just like changed this like person's like life?
Well,
there's not a left field. They didn't prepare.
No, it's fine. I'm going to give you two stories.
Okay.
The first one is we've got some really good friends that are, we call their kids our niece and nephew, but they're close friends. And they were playing dominoes with myself and Wendy and the kids in 2018. And, I'm like, you guys got to stop renting. Like, you guys both have good jobs, like enough of this. And so Sunday, they start looking at Zillow. Monday, they find a house. Monday, they're qualified. Tuesday, we have that house under contract. But the goal for them was, I said, guys, this is not your forever home. It's a shift, because I'm going to be back and we're going to restructure this. We're going to keep it as a rental. So we were flipping another house over at like Cave Creek and Cactus, and it put them further east. And it was a good neighborhood. We actually had friends across the street and all those other things. Wendy just got done remodeling it. And when he comes home, she's like, we're perfect for Dave and Taylor. I'm like, yeah, you're right. So we did it again, right? We got him refinanced out of this one, out of his VA. And while we're in the process of remodeling this, and then they used their VA over here, and we kept this as a rental. Here's the crazy thing. Because they listened, our niece and nephew, they've increased their net worth $300,000 over the last 2 years. Because we did what we did the first time. They had the conversation. They knew what they were striving for. And now they're here. And this one will be a rental too. And we will do it again.
Yeah. How old are they?
They're in their late 30s.
Okay. So, and the VA loans are always a great scenario too.
Right. So here's the thing. I didn't sell anybody's house.
Yeah.
But knowing that I'm going to have that impact on their family is what's really, really important to me. And, I do this exercise every now and again in my speaking engagements where it's like, I want you to close your eyes and picture yourself standing at your funeral. Nobody is going to talk about how many homes you sold. Nobody's going to talk about you got higher list price, all the posts in Facebook. Nobody's going to remember you by that. I want to know how many clients and agents and people did I impact their lives at the end of the day, like my dad did, right? That they had a better career path, and how many people did they help, not how many homes did they sold, right? So if I can change that from an impact and change, so many people have generational curses from money.
Yeah.
That at some point in time, it's got to break.
Yeah.
And so that's really my passion right now, is showing those people. And so, that's a great story. I've done that for a lot of people. And I've also shown a lot of investors, like, here's the starting points, right? So we do strategy sessions with investors where I go through their dream life budget and like, where do you want to get to? And this is how many houses it's going to take to get there. And here's how we're going to do it, right? So I actually give them guidance rather than them coming to me going, well, my friend bought an investment property and we want to invest. I'm like, that's great, but we have to do a strategy session, which is 4 calls before you can buy a house. Because I'm not going to argue with you about what's a good deal or not. Right. So you need to know what my mindset is around this. And if you don't want to, that's okay too. So the other story recently, which again, solving problems. So I just got the signed contract today. I worked with this guy for 6 weeks. He was a referral from a lender. I don't even know how he got to her. Maybe it was through somebody else. So he called. He's like, hey, I'm managing, my grandmother's estate. She's 92. I just moved her into assisted living. This is her cost per month. I'm like, okay. He's like, it's kind of a hoarder house, so it needs some repairs, not updated. I'm like, all right. So I went over and I looked at it. I'm like, look, I can be somewhere around that 360 price range. And he's like, okay, that sounds reasonable. I said, it needs some work. It might be worth 450 when it's all said and done. But I walked him through all the things. Like, we can sell the house, we can do these things. But the last question I asked him, did grandma have any money? Right? She didn't. And what's the timing to get grandma? And what is that going to cost her per year? Okay, so I went beyond the sale. Okay. And I asked him, I said, so grandma's going to get $300,000 out of this. How are you going to grow her money so she can keep living? Because, by the way, I have a 101-year-old aunt that has outlived her money, and the family has paid for it, right? For the last 7 years, we've paid $7,000 a month for her assisted living facility. Right? Because we didn't think she would go that long, but man, I got to go back and see her for 101 in June, right?
When are you getting into the assisted living business?
No. So I asked him one final question. I said, okay, so what are you going to do with grandma's money? He's like, nobody's asked me that question. I said, well, it's important to think about where are you going to put it, because grandma needs guaranteed rates of return to at least subsidize some of that cost. And I said, well, we've got this deed of trust program where investors invest their money at 8%, and that's guaranteed rate of return secured by real estate. Does that interest you? He's like, wait, you guys do that? He's like, so I had lunch with him on Saturday, broke it all down for him. And he was so impressed because he met with 6 other investors that offered him from $265 to $300. And I paid more money, but I also put the money to work.
Yeah.
So we ended up just keeping the money in the deal. We wrapped the existing mortgage. We kept her equity there, and now she gets the payment, and I get the house, and it solves everybody's problem.
What's that called? Is there a strategy about this you can go look up?
Well, I mean, technically it's a wrap where you're wrapping some equity, but it's the way around it, right? And so even when, and I told him, I said, I'm probably going to fix this up. We're going to get it rented. I'm probably going to refinance it. Grandma will get her $300,000 back, and then we will put it to work again, and we'll keep rolling it until you guys need it back.
But you took deed of the house. Okay.
Yep.
Do we have time for a couple more questions? What time is it?
Yes, actually, I was asking Rachel if she was interested in asking questions.
I have one more before I do that real quick, though.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you ever do the subject to?
I don't. I know there's a lot of people out there, like Pace that does it. They're real big into it. And I know there's all kinds of different things. I haven't gotten into it, right? There's a lot of different things. So I'm just one of those guys. I stay in my lane, do my thing. And
I think that seems to be his lane. I just was curious about it because it's one of those ones that, I can't wrap my head around it quite yet.
No, it's interesting, but there's a lot of different lanes on that one that can be trouble, can do different things. So I've just chosen to kind of stay where I'm at.
Nice. You want to ask something, Rachel, or? So
I'm actually going to ask a couple rapid fires to just kind of switch gears.
Okay.
And then, Rach, give you a minute to think about exactly how you want to word your question. Okay. Okay. Cool.
No pressure.
No pressure. All right. So this is one of Ryan's favorite questions. What was the last gift you gave someone?
The last gift I gave someone. It was Thursday night. Actually, I'm always giving people stuff, but the most memorable one recently, Thursday night, we were at Ocean Prime. I was with a private coaching client, and there's this really well-dressed kid. He's 16. He's bussing tables. I'm like, dude, tell me what you're saving for. Like, why are you here? You're 16. What are you doing? So we're just having a conversation. He's like, well, I'm working towards, my mom said if I save so much money, we could split the cost of a Can-Am. And, I'm doing construction on the side. I'm like, cool. I'm like, because you're working and you're here doing your thing, I'm like, here's $100.
Yeah.
Right?
I love doing that.
Generosity is key, right?
I get caught in these webs on YouTube about guys just giving money to people.
Yep.
I'm just like, God, that's the best job ever. Because they get money from sponsors to give money.
But my favorite thing to do is because everybody loves them is Tammy, our CFO, I'll send her a text, send these people crumble cookies, send these people crumble cookies. Those are instant go-to gifts. Everybody loves a good cookie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's good. Another one?
Yeah. What's your favorite word?
Fuck.
That's actually, you're not the first person to say that at all.
Yeah, boy. I was thinking you're going to say strategy.
I was going to say investment.
No, I'll go back to my actual favorite word. I just thought that would be funny. It's the word that's tattooed on my forearm, right? Which is limitless.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And that's only a couple years old, right?
It's 5 years old.
God damn.
Yeah.
I feel like it was yesterday.
Yep.
Did Wendy get it too, or?
So Wendy got it on her forearm in Christian's handwriting.
Okay.
And then the day Christian turned 18, he had it done just as big on his forearm. So it's just a family.
Christian's working with you now too, or what?
No, he's the kids are doing really well. They're both working at Dutch Brothers.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Is they're gonna get one day?
Hopefully, we'll see.
All right, Rach, can Rachel ask her question?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and lean in.
Okay, so a few times you guys both mentioned the word regret in terms of having regrets of not purchasing when you did real estate and then investing. What would you say is your answer to the regret question? Because obviously you're still buying real estate. We've got, like you mentioned, hedge funds, iBuyers coming in and buying hundreds of homes here a month. And it's all, as you mentioned, like the long-term buy and hold, never going to be a sale again on that, forever rental. So with that in mind, would you say the goal is it's not too late? Don't regret. Grab now and hold, because it's your answer to that. Hey, it's the long-term equity gain over time to build wealth. And if it is, last question is, what are you estimating as an annual year-over-year return or increase in property value that somebody can count on as far as that equity gain goes?
Oh, that last one's a magic ball question, right? Crystal ball question. So here's the thing. I always tell the investors, and it's the same thing that I buy. I'm never buying with the hope of appreciation or the guarantee that this is going to be the rate of return. The process is to understand that, as you buy one, you have some reserves so you don't stress out about it, right? And buying it from a very long-term play. Because you can start now, like I said, it's law of average. So like my portfolio, some of the lower ones I bought are feeding the higher priced ones that I bought. So it's law of average. So, I don't believe that the Phoenix market is going to tank or any of that stuff. I think it's going to go stable. And the challenge that I always have for people like right now, is Phoenix overvalued or was it undervalued for a really long time?
Yeah, that's the question, right? Undervalued is pretty much is what everybody seems to be saying, right?
So, while there's like this turmoil, and we've gone through this before when rates change.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of talks about the economy and all the different things. And, what happens is people freak out for 90 days. And then it kind of becomes the norm. The only difference is there's some global stuff that's also causing like a little bit of what if, right? So why would anybody stop their dream and the things that they're doing if they're still earning income? Now, I understand like if your job's at risk or, your money is down, those types of things, it might change things. But it's having the mindset of this is the path I want to take. I might not be ready for it now, but there's so many creative ways to do it from all kinds of different standpoints, partnering with people. One of the big things that I have conversations with like the 12 adopted kids that are in and out of my door, all the time. I've showed all the boys, here's what you make right now. This is what we need for the three of you to buy your first business, and your first business will be a house, and you will live in that, and you will rent it from yourselves, and I will help you manage that business from that standpoint. Because I think you're going to see more cohabitation, right? I'm seeing it in the rental properties where there's multiple people renting it together. It's just the price point we're going to be in. Like, think about this. People still pay stupid prices in California for like a third of the house, more taxes, more state taxes. Like what makes you think that that's all of a sudden going to stop here?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's still like, $2,000 a square foot up in Northern California.
Right.
I mean, we're in Arcadia this year. I think it was the highest ever at $1,000 a square foot.
Right.
Now it's getting more normal. But in your neighborhood, it's like $380 a square foot, $400 a square foot in my neighborhood. Same, right?
Right.
I mean, there's always room to grow, and there's still not a lot of houses for sale, even though it's increasing. But there's not a lot of they're not building fast enough for all the houses, and this is a different state, I think, than the rest of the country, honestly. And there's a few other places like this too, but we're just in a different scenario, and we're going to slow down instead of going 100%, appreciation year over year.
Right.
It's going to be 10.
That's okay.
Which is okay. Which is what it should be.
And I think it's also, a time that, again, we have to get down to stop listening to the talking heads on the national statistics and dive deeper into, our own market, knowing that, because you'll be able to answer better questions when somebody's like, oh, well, Chicken Little, the sky is falling. Well, not here. It's not.
Right.
Like I heard an economic call this morning, and like the East Coast only had about 6% appreciation last year. The Midwest had about 10, and the South had 20. But if somebody's like, well, national statistic was 12%, well, yeah, because you took the law of average over here, but over here it's still going gangbusters. And, like I said, the REITs are still buying things at high prices. There's still things happening. I think the change right now, though, for the agents is we have got to have better conversations earlier on with our clients to set them up for success. And no longer do you get to put a piece of shit house on the market and demand a high price for it. You have to understand what is actually happening in order to sell it for that seller. Because if I put one of my flips on comparison to something else that's not remodeled, mine's going to sell first, right? All day long, because they know it's done. And the other thing too that I think people need to understand is like, yeah, you might be able to buy something that's a good deal, but you still have to go down the road of fixing it. And those are like trying to get mirrors, trying to get light bulbs, trying to get sinks, bathtubs, right? We're still having all those things. Right. It's taking a little bit longer, but it's also finding contractors that are available.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah.
I don't know if you guys discussed this before. We went on the air, but your podcast, like, do you want to talk about that? I think it's unique that you have your title partner as your co-host.
Yeah.
Let's go there at the very end because I'm afraid I'm going to lose my thought here.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay. So my son so Trey went to like I wouldn't say it's like a trade school, but kind of for film, right? Not a traditional university sort of thing. Aiden, he's going to be going to CRAS, it's like Center for Recording Arts Studio, something like that. You know, I think about like all these kids that are going to college, and I'm listening to him talk, and I'm just going like, this should be a college. It should be a school. Like literally, this is like a career. It's like going to learn to be a welder, right? Going to learn to just do a
real estate investor.
Yes. Like literally just learning all these things, but like parents paying, okay, cool, I'm going to pay $50,000 and they're going to go to school and they're going to learn, and it's going to be on the job sort of like learning like a journeyman would go do if they were going to go do electricity. I'm just coming up with a business idea. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so let's just talk about that for a second.
Okay.
Let's not even talk about it from a parent's perspective.
Yeah.
So Trey's 19, right? He comes out of high school, maybe at 18. Anyway, he comes out of school and says, I want to go get my real estate license. Mom and dad are upset because he's not going to go to a 4-year college, which would cost $100,000. It's probably low.
Yeah.
But nobody will pay somebody $25,000 to mentor them to start in the business. They won't put up that investment, but they want to make $100,000 in their first year.
Right.
So, you know, this is my big thing. There are two types of returns on investment. There's an ROI and there's an ROL. So it's a return on investment or a return on life. And so anybody that's coming into the business, it's easy to get in. And yes, you can go work on a team and then they bitch about splits and all these things. No agent has ever come into my office and says, hey, you know what? I got my license. I have some money saved up. I will pay for you to coach me for the next year. I don't want any commissions. I want to know how to make it good and build wealth in this business while I sell real estate and learn it. Nobody's willing to do that. They want to start off and they want to run and gun and they want to go through all the things. But I can tell you right now, I wish somebody would have taught me this at age 20. I wish that I would have invested at age 20.
Yeah.
And here's the piece of this. No matter what part of the career you're in, no matter what, a dripping faucet will fill a bucket over time. Okay? So what I mean by that is that small habits will fill that bucket over time, whether it's your finances. If you won't save $10 out of 100, you won't save 100 out of 1,000, you won't save 10,000 out of 100,000, right? If you don't invest in something small like yourself, if you won't invest $1,000 a month to better your knowledge and make yourself a stronger agent or a stronger person, no matter what it is, you're not going to invest $10,000. You're not going to invest $50,000. Right? Right now, I invest about 6 figures a year into masterminds and coaching, right? But I never would have done it had I not saw the value in the first piece of my coaching in doing a little thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's just part of the investment journey. That's part of the mindset is that everything's an investment. My staff, they're all an investment. They're not a cost on my PL. They're an investment. They're an investment. They're a return on life for me.
Yeah.
So many people look at the P&Ls and those types of things and everything's an expense rather than what's the return on this?
Right. I think that if you look in not just real estate, but real estate is very heavy in coaching, obviously, but I think there's a lot of other successful people in high level positions within all different types of organizations that they all have coaches. They have multiple coaches.
Yep.
They pay a lot of money.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And sometimes I found personally that when I've gotten away from that is when I start like getting kind of lost a little bit. And then I go back and I start going, okay. And then it gets me more motivated to be doing the things I should be doing and knowing all that stuff. So, all right, last question before we have to wrap it. Is that what you're saying? You were going to ask about the podcast?
About the podcast, how that came to be. I mean, you guys are churning out some good stuff.
Really, really funny story about the podcast. So Tammy, our CFO, and we had set up a meeting about starting the podcast. And, you know, I've been friends with Bernie for a long time at Lawyer's Title. And she was actually very interesting about her is that our story goes back when she was at WFG. And this was how she got in the door with me. I said yes to a really stupid appointment. It was this dumb Cox cable TV show that was terrible. And but I said yes to the meeting.
Yeah.
And Bernie happened to be from WFG. They were sponsoring this other lender. And so I met Bernie, and then we did the dumb Cox table TV show thing. And then she reached out and she says, you know, can I have coffee with you and go through this? And she started asking, she's like, I know that you work with lawyers and all that other stuff. She says, but what are your aspirations now? And this was right when I started to get into some of the coaching and speaking. I'm like, you know, I really think that I have a message that I want to deliver in different things. And she goes, cool. She's like, I'll try to help you with that. Like, she didn't ask for business. She wanted to know, like, how can I help you?
Yeah.
So
what a pro.
It was like 2 months later, she, WFG pays all expenses to take me to Vegas for 3 or 4 days. And next thing I know, I'm on stage in front of 1,000 escrow officers telling them how the company that I'm not using brought me here. Right.
Yeah.
But just kind of going through the business and talking about those things. And then they sent me to Portland. They sent me to Florida. Like, they sent me all over the place. And that's how she started getting some business that I pushed through to WFG.
Yeah.
And then when she came over to Lawyers, I'm like, great, I don't have to feel like I'm cheating on everybody.
Right.
And,
right.
But it was her value, right? And so we've always gone through a lot of business. So I know that was a long way around. But she came into the office, and Tammy and I are sitting on the other end of the table, and Bernie thought we wanted her to help us market. And I'm like, no, I need you to be the co-host. Because I don't want to sit here and talk to a microphone.
Right.
So it was just
she's like, okay.
Yeah, and she's an extremely, smart person, right? Super high on the emotional intelligence side. And so we just started going down the road. We sat at this little table in my office and recorded the first 4 episodes, which if I go back and listen to those, they're probably terrible. But now it's just been kind of fun, the different guests and the different things, and just being able to pump more knowledge into the agent community.
Do you have a favorite episode or a favorite guest?
Oh,
And you do a lot of them without guests too.
Yeah, we do. We'll just rap back and forth about a topic. 2 of my favorite people in the world that have both had a huge impact on me is Brian North was on. He was awesome. And then also, one of my main mentors is Chris Harder, that does a lot of the financial thing. And I've been in his mastermind for 5 years. So those are really good guests.
Awesome.
And now you guys have a studio.
Yep. We got full studio. Yeah, we've dumped a bunch of money into the thing, and we've got full-time media person that runs all of it and cuts everything up, and yeah.
Does that media person is that same person that follows you around sometimes? Okay, so you just have like a videographer basically on staff, and so you have a Trey. Trey guy.
Let's go.
We'll talk about how much you pay him afterwards. We'll figure it out. All right. So any more questions over there? I think we've hit our hour and his cutoff because he's got to bail out of here. So thanks so much, dude. Again, I've learned a lot today. Again, I really have. It like makes my mind spin every time I talk to this guy, and now I'm gonna go home and be like, all right, I think we need to give him some money and try to figure something out. And Trey, we're gonna buy a house, and Trisha, we're gonna buy a house.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks
Family
again,
affair,
though,
right?
Trey. I appreciate it. Rach, thanks for bringing Steve into this, and because him and I had talked about it before, and reciprocating too, by the way.
Yep.
And thank you, Trisha, obviously. And I'm going to throw out another name out here that nobody's heard yet. Liz, right? She's going to be working for us. Well, and it's not Liz Dysart.
Lizard Daily.
So she's gonna be part of this whole program as well. So we're gonna keep them coming. Hopefully every week now. Back to our old system and back to it, man. This is fun.
I've missed it.
I've missed it too.
Yeah.
So thanks again for
Absolutely.
having us. We really appreciate it. And everybody out there, Into the Storm on YouTube, Into the Storm on Instagram, Facebook, all the social media. outlet, so to speak. And so yeah, like and subscribe, because the only way we can continue to do this and I can continue to pay Trey is to have like people come on and wanting to be here, and people enjoy the content. So
yeah, and a lot of stuff that I do is on Instagram. Steve D Valentine, all those things. Thinking OTB on podcasts, wherever the podcasts are, and then stevedvalentine.com is the website stuff. So
what's the podcast name?
Thinking OTB.
Thinking OTB.
Yeah,
that's right.
We're going to put all of your resource links in the show notes.
Cool, super fun.
And you can reach out to him for coaching too. By the way, hey, does anybody that's not a realtor, are they part of your coaching program at all?
Yeah, so those are private strategy sessions.
Okay.
So when investors want to start to invest, they do a private strategy session before they invest.
Okay.
And then, so we kind of go through that coaching with them to coach them on the investment side.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you. Thanks again, and we will see you soon. Appreciate it.